Hello everyone. I've had a little late start to the day today, which means this video is also going out little late. So let's just get started with the highlights and we'll start. The first one is from Get It Done. Faster than expected progress on approach goals makes you feel happy, proud, eager, excited. While slower than expected progress on approach goals makes you feel sad, depressed, frustrated, and angry. Faster than expected progress on avoidance goals make you feel relief, calmness, relaxation, and contentment. While slower than expected progress on avoidance goals makes you feel anxiety, fear, and guilt. Okay, there are a lot of different words, different sentiments over here in this phrase. The author is just summarizing between the rates of progress on different types of goals. So, approach goals are those where you want something, where you're actively aiming for something. For example, you may be aiming for a promotion, for example. So that's an approach goal, that is something that you want to a stage where you want to reach. And avoidance goals are those where, or are those which you want to avoid. For example, uh, in terms of weight control, you would want to limit your caloric intake, for example. So that's an avoidance goal. You're avoiding the number of calories you're consuming per day. So depending on your rate of progress for both of these type of goals, this is kind of like all the emotions that you would feel based on that. It's just a summary, the reflections of why this happens and everything that's covered in the book. But yeah, this highlight is just a summary of that. Moving on, again, Get It Done. In a study led by Janina Steinmetz, we found that people believed that the amount of food they ate in public was larger than how much they ate alone, though the portions were the same. These perceptions motivate eating smaller portions in public than in private. So I think the author is trying to point out that sometimes it's just the perception of things that matter towards realizing your goal. So if you feel fuller, even if the portion size is smaller, but if you feel fuller in when eating in public, that's a strategy you could use. But I'm afraid I'm not really recalling any other context to this. I feel there was a little bit more, but yeah, it's not coming to me right now. So I'll just move on. The eye test. That's what made Billy Bean a good story. A man seeking corrections in himself accidentally corrects the whole world. Yeah, I forget this story. But yeah, I think I can relate to this. A man seeking corrections in himself accidentally corrects the whole world. But I really can't begin to describe it. So again, I'm going to skip it. So this is long. So measuring an engineering organization. That's an article. So measure to plan. So the author is talking about different types of measurement. Like different strategies of measurement. Why would you want to measure an engineering organization? So one of the reasons would be to plan. So let's read that. Measure to plan. What would help you align with cross-functional stakeholders to decide what to ship in a given quarter, half, or year? Critically, this is not about how you ship. Are we using agile? Rather, your goal is to support project selection and prioritization. You want a single place that shows the business, product, and engineering impacts of work. You might argue that planning is the product team's responsibility, but only engineering can represent the full set of projects that engineering works on. Example: products unlikely to roadmap your database migration. So the author is explaining that you could measure engineering organization. You could plan your metrics in such a way so that it will help you plan. It will help you plan what to ship in a given quarter in any given duration, and it's not about how you ship like the author is describing. It's about what to ship, and again the author argues that it's not about the product team's responsibility, because there are a lot of tasks which are engineering team's responsibility as well. For example, database migration, that's not going to come from the product team. That's an engineering team's responsibility, and that is why it is still worth measuring an engineering organization so that you can plan for these kind of activities. So let's move on. The molecule of more. Rational decisions are fragile things, always open to revision as new evidence comes along. Irrationality is more enduring, and both desire, dopamine, and the HNN pathways can be taken advantage of to guide people towards making irrational decisions. The most effective tools are fear, desire, and sympathy. The author is talking about different strategies people use in convincing other people. So if you take support of rational beliefs and rational decisions in convincing somebody else, it may work, but it has like only a lasting impact. And this chapter is coming in the middle of I think politics, how politicians think about this and everything. So when politicians have to decide about convincing people to vote for them, they can use the rational benchmark to convince people. But that's only going to work for so long. They'll have to keep reinvesting in this again and again. But irrationality is more enduring, and both dopamine and HNN pathways are taken advantage of in the process. So it sticks. And the examples are quite clear over here. The book goes into examples of what kind of decisions can be made. Like for example, what are rational decisions and irrational decisions in terms of policy making, for example. So you can keep explaining that your policies would improve the general condition of the society in a certain way, but that's not as powerful as evoking things like fear, desire, or sympathy. Like we commonly see in politics today, that the politicians, their main job is to make people afraid of the other party, stuff like that. So yeah, let's move on. Getting things done. Now, for many of us, there are no edges to most of our projects. Most people I know have at least half a dozen things they're trying to achieve or situations they'd like to improve right now. And even if they had the rest of their lives to try, they won't be able to finish this to perfection. I'm This sentence tells me a lot of different things, but I'm not really sure what is the reason I highlighted this. There are no edges to most of our projects. Talk? Are they talking about perfection over here? Uh, of course, like I can relate to the rest of the phrase where it says many people have a lot of different things that they want to complete, they want to achieve, and even if they have the all the time in the world, they're not going to able to they'll not be able to finish it to perfection. So yeah, I'm missing the message, so I'm just going to move on. Extreme ownership. A broad and ambiguous mission results in lack of focus, ineffective execution, and mission creep. To prevent this, the mission must be carefully refined and simplified so that it is explicitly clear and specifically focused to achieve the greater strategic vision for which that mission is a part. It's kind of clarity in communication. So there is this kind of top level strategy, and you would have a mission to fulfill that strategy. But if that mission is ambiguous, it's vague, then it results in lack of focus, ineffective execution, and mission creep, like the author is saying. So the communicate how do you communicate the mission, like the requirements of a mission to your team? That matters. The clarity, the explicitness, making it crystal clear that this is what we are hoping to achieve today with this mission. That's the important bit. Again, get it done. The over justification effect happens when adding a justification or an incentive to an action and then removing it undermines motivation. Um, so I just started reading this book Drive, which is all about this really, and Get It Done goes into a lot more detail than I have gone so far in Drive. But the idea is the same. When we introduce incentives so that people take up something, and then we remove the incentives, whatever internal motivation that person had, that is also eliminated. That's the over justification happen effect. That when we added like when we justified to ourselves that okay, we are doing something. For example, how do I put this? Um, I can't think of a really good example, but let's say that my organization um, pays out extra for doing an additional task, let's say, and now that task may be something that I want to do. I mean, like I'm intrinsically motivated to do that task, but now I find out that my organization is paying me an additional bonus to do that, and of course I wanted to do it anyway, so I'll continue doing it. I'll in fact do more of it. But then when the incentive is removed, when that bonus is removed, remember I was always intrinsically motivated to do that before the bonus was there. I would have done it anyway. But now that the bonus was introduced and it was removed, Now that there is this over justification effect that, okay, no, I don't feel like doing that anymore because the bonus has been removed. And this has, of course, been confirmed by many, many experiments, and and we have known it for a long time. Drive goes into like a lot of detail about how this came about to be, how this was found out, and what are the different reactions. Drive, basically the book Drive is all about this. Get it done. It's on a larger topic of motivation, but of course it talks about this incentives and how it affects with our motivations as well. We'll move on. Remote, not distant. Many organizations don't come from a culture of collaboration. They just force people to work together without intentional design and often with poor results. Okay, not much to say over here. That many organizations believe that, okay, you just people put people together in a room and they'll figure out how to talk to each other, how to communicate, and it'll just work out. And maybe in beginning, yes, if the organization is small enough, people do figure out a way to work together, and that becomes the company culture. But in a larger organization, if it does not match with, if whatever happens in that room does not match the larger organization, it's going to lead to friction everywhere. So intentional design is important. And yeah, I said that for smaller companies it's going to happen anyway. But if you intentionally design that this is how you would collaborate with people, you are way ahead of your game. You're advancing in your steps. So yeah, let's move on. Range. I always advise my people to read outside your field. Every day is something. And most people say, well, I don't have time to read outside my field. I say, no, you do have time. It's far more important. Your world becomes a bigger world, and maybe there's a moment in which you make connections. I completely agree with this because I do like to read a variety of books. Like I've said before, I'm trying to increase the uh, like my reading of fiction books as well. I didn't really read a lot of fiction before, but I'm trying to, like, this year I'm trying to increase that as well. So I agree with this completely. Read outside your field every day. From my highlights, you would have gathered that, okay, there are a lot of different things I read about, a lot of different highlights that come up, and connections are important. So yes, yeah, I think that's about it, and we are at the end of our highlights as well. So thank you once again for watching them, and I hope this is proving to be useful. And have a good day. Take care.